Hello there, it's Paul here and welcome everyone. I'm going to do a review of the Prokraft. It's a pepper stroke salt grinder and this is the chrome edition, and this particular one I made is the 5-inch version. Now they do this model in an 8.5-inch version and also a 5-inch version. Back in October 2020, just over a year ago, I did make the 8.5-inch version, which I've got indoors. They get used every single day, several times a day, and I've never had a problem with them, so they're really reliable. Now I thought I'd do a review of this, obviously because I've had them for a year, and at the same time try and give you some tips and pointers that you need to watch out for when you make these. First thing of all is that this is my second attempt on this particular one. I've already made some of these smaller ones before, but it turns out that they've changed these from a 4.5-inch version to the 5-inch version, which is what I've got here. When I went to make this particular kit a few weeks ago, I made them from instructions that I got sat in my drawer from the last ones I bought, and therefore my blanks were far too short. Downloaded the instructions again, making sure that these were for the right size. Certainly if you've got a kit of these in your drawer, just double check for the label on there, and this one does say on there it's for the 5-inch grinder. These particular ones have to be 112mm high. Prokraft, this is Prokraft in the UK, have made sure that they buy everything and provide instructions, especially for people in the UK where we're working on metric measurements. They're very simple instructions here. The diagram they're given here is that you've got to basically have 38mm recesses in the top here, which is only 5mm deep, and the bottom there again a 38mm recess, which is 10mm deep. The hole that goes right through is 25mm. You might be better off doing it slightly different. The one on the bottom, absolutely fine. The plate just goes straight in there and you screw it in place, no problem whatsoever. Top one, when you put this plate in there, the screws holes are actually very close to the edge on the wall of the hole, so it means you have to put the screws in at a slight angle. So it would be better if you probably started off with maybe a 24mm hole, and this 25mm hole that goes through the middle here, if you just think it's just like a chamber, it's a reservoir to hold the salt or the peppercorns in there. So it doesn't make a difference what shape it is. I mean, you can, if you're making some form of a funky salt and pepper grinder where they're like a bulbous shape, there's no reason you can't hollow out the inside to that shape as well. Now the one thing that the instructions do say as well is they do recommend using a 1.5mm pilot hole for the screws, and I would certainly recommend that. The other thing you also need to check as well is that your drill will actually take a 1.5mm piece, because this old Bosch one I've got here takes it no problem. I think my newer drill, which I've got, won't take a 1.5mm drill bit, so check your chuck size as well for your drill that you're going to use. Final thing as well is that on that 112mm, you can't really be much over it. Even on my larger version inside, is that when you refill these up and put that lid back on, you've got to think this square bit here has got to be far enough down to locate onto the square bar, otherwise it's not going to work. And this is where your height of your blank is so important, because if you've got this too far down, then your nut on the top there is not going to go down far enough to actually then hold this down in place. And I've found this really tight at the 112mm is that when you've got that set in there normally, this doesn't actually go down far enough, and what you have to do is from underneath you actually have to push up this inner bit to make sure you push the bar up so that this rod comes up a little bit so that it just about locates on the square bit. Then you can get the actual securing nut on the top. Final important thing as well, which the instructions do cover anyway, do not over tighten these. If you over tighten these, what you're going to find is that these ceramic grinders that you've got in here, you're just going to wear them away. It's a little bit fiddly sometimes just refilling them up, but fortunately, I mean, the larger versions, even with the amount of salt and pepper I use, you don't have to fill them up too often. What you might find as well with if you use whole peppercorns is that even though the peppercorns drop into this inner rim, you might find as well that they don't always go in there straight away. What I've found is that sometimes you just have to give it a bit of a shake as you rotate it, just so that you get peppercorns located into that grinding area. As soon as they start grinding, it's no problem whatsoever. Price wise, These kits, I believe I paid £7.54 on the 5-inch versions. Obviously the 8.5-inch versions will be slightly a bit more expensive, but I've got to say, for what you get here, it's really, really good value for money, and I highly recommend these ones to anybody. So I hope that's been a help, and thanks a lot for watching.